There is now a new acronym for poetic justice in Washington, D.C. Okay, first, 172 Democrats sided with the Republicans on something that was called the Defund Acorn Act. It would have stripped this organization, Acorn, the Association of Community Organizations for Reform Now, it would have stripped Acorn of all federal funding. You know, because Acorn represents all of the evils of helping poor people earn a living wage and vote in elections and other scary stuff. Well, now there's something new that's called the Acorn Act. It's different than the Defund Acorn Act. It's the Acorn Act, and it was introduced by Congresswoman Betty McCollum, Democrat of Minnesota. And in her bill, Acorn, A-C-O-R-N, the acronym, stands for something totally different. It stands for Against Corporations Organizing to Rip Off the Nation. And unlike the Republican Acorn bill, her Acorn bill, quote, respects the Constitution by requiring a corporation to be guilty of a felony before federal funds are cut off. Which means that the community organizing group Acorn could actually still receive government funding because they haven't been convicted of anything. But companies like, say, Pfizer, which pled guilty to a felony violation in the fraudulent marketing of an arthritis drug, they would be cut out of any current and future government deals. This sort of punchback is also happening in the Senate. The Senate just took on defense contractors like Lockheed Martin and Boeing and Northrop Grumman, who, as we pointed out 10 days ago in the show, have defrauded the taxpayer numerous times and have still been awarded new government deals. Senators have now adopted an amendment in the defense appropriations bill that would require the Pentagon to tally up the amount of money that's going to defense contractors who have repeatedly defrauded the government. It also then says that the Pentagon should suggest ways to punish those offending contractors. Joining us now is the man who introduced that amendment, Senator Bernie Sanders, independent of Vermont, who is also one of only 7 senators to vote against defunding the community group Acorn. Senator Sanders, thanks very much for joining us tonight.
Good to be with you, Rachel.
Your proposed amendment to the defense appropriations bill focuses on defense contractors. And I know that Project on Government Oversight has already done some investigating into fraud and other problems with defense contractors. Who would be the worst hit here?
Well, you're looking at the big 3 defense contractors. That's Lockheed Martin, Boeing, and Northrop Grumman. And Rachel, since 1995, these 3 companies have been cited 109 times for misconduct. They have been fined or reached settlements for $2.9 billion. So here you have major multinational corporations who on a systemic basis have been ripping off the American people. And I think if we can go after Acorn, and I voted against that Acorn received $53 million over 15 years, you're looking at companies that have received hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars, and their punishment in 2007 was $77 billion in government contracts. So there is a scandal here, and we've got to take a hard look at it.
The thing that is politically ambitious and impressive and makes a good story about this is the way that the attack on Acorn has been turned back by you in the Senate and by these liberal members of the House on the other side of, in the other chamber, turned back on the people who are attacking Acorn to say, you know what, put your money where your mouth is. If you're really against contractors who have done anything wrong, let's say it applies to everyone. What sort of arguments are you hearing against your amendment? What sorts of arguments are you hearing from people who aren't willing to go along with it?
You know what the most obvious argument is? That if you barred these corporations from receiving funds, the military would collapse. Because these are the major contractors, the people who supply the weapon systems to our military. So you have a situation where these major contractors, year after year after year, have been engaged in systemic fraud to the tune of billions and billions of dollars, and yet if you really went after them, you would have them not supplying the weapon system that the military has asked for.
And that argument...
That's the response.
And that argument in itself makes the case for why these companies have been able to get away with it for so long. If they're seen as necessary, then nobody's going to crack down on them for anything, right?
And Rachel, I think the point to add to that is that a lot of these investigations were done under the Bush administration, which I think, as most people know, was not very hard in terms of investigating large companies. So what we may be seeing in terms of 109 instances of misconduct is certainly, it could be just the tip of the iceberg. So my point is the time is now, instead of going after little groups like Acorn, let's take on the big guys who have been ripping off the American people to the tune of billions and billions of dollars. And by the way, in some instances, by producing defective equipment, have put the lives of American servicemen at risk.
Senator Bernie Sanders, independent of Vermont, thanks for your time tonight, sir. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.